What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and to another Overwatch League discussion video. With the nominees for the 2020 Overwatch League MVP set to be revealed at the end of this week, I thought we could spend the day discussing some potential candidates that could make the cut. It's a very broad discussion since you can make an argument for a lot of different players, but I figured it would be fun to come up with some guesses for players who I think could make the polls. And you know what? I'll even throw in a bonus list of players who I personally think will make the cut that have nothing to do with who the Overwatch League pick. Before getting started though, I will warn you right now that I will be using a lot of stats from the Overwatch League website when making a case for certain players. But that's pretty much all you need to know, so let's begin with some of the people who I think the league will pick. And my first choice would have to probably be Carpe. As of right now, he is still my leader to win this award. In my opinion, it would be insane to not even have him on the ballot. Even if you don't think he deserves to win the thing, he has to be on this list. Carpe has played this season with authority. There have been very few games where he hasn't shown up this year. Carpe does very well with maintaining a commanding presence. It's like season 1 all over again. No matter what he has to play, he finds a way to go above and beyond the competition. As per usual, he's been a workhorse. I mean, just look at his totals on the year. Almost 1k final blows, 2,000 eliminations, nearly 900,000 damage, an absurd amount of solo kills, and a high final blow to death ratio. He ranks top 3 or better in every single category I listed off. Now those are results. What really stands out to me though is how much he leads by for both final blows and hero damage. Talk about consistently hitting the shots and finding the kills and cleaning everything up. He might not be a league leader stats wise on every hero he plays, but I promise you he's doing something useful even on the heroes where the stats would suggest maybe otherwise. Carpe is one of the clutchest players in the league and there's no debating it. Here's one last Carpe stat for you to back that up. So when it comes to getting final blows in overtime situations when his team does not have the advantage, he gets over 10 kills per 10 minutes, and the Fusion are winning about 60% of their fights in those scenarios. He doesn't miss, both figuratively and literally. The clutch captain of the Fusion never fails to deliver, and I think that's pretty evident by Philly's insane record on the season and their top 4 or better finish in both the regular season tournament so far. Carpe more than deserves to be in the conversation for MVP. Let's shift on over to another popular NA region team. Another person who I think the league will deem worthy of being a potential MVP is Hanbin. To be completely honest, he's not somebody I give nearly enough praise to. Hanbin has killed it all season, and don't just limit yourselves to rookies. Generally speaking, he is one of the best tank players in the league. Besides having totals that rival that of Void, he's also top ranked on every off-tank hero. Both with the stats and without them, he's a top Sigma in the league. Statistically, he's at the top for everything, and that carries over onto Zarya and D.Va too. If you take his averages by combining all 3 of those heroes, he's top 2 or better with final blows, eliminations, and damage. I like off-tanks who make big-time contributions, and Hanbin fits under this category without a doubt. Not only does he provide intelligent play that his team can play around and sustain, but he's a big-time playmaker too. It's one of those cases where a superstar off-tank player is all over the place. It's like a Season 2 Janu type of year for him. Hanbin is insane. Saying he lived up to the hype would be an understatement. He has taken the league by storm, and now he not only leads the way at the off-tank position, but also on his team, as they are no doubt title contenders partially thanks to his efforts. If you can stand out and then some when you share the spotlight with Sparkle and Exy, then I'm pretty sure you're doing an excellent job. I would be genuinely upset if Hanbin didn't get an honorable mention at the very least when we get the finalist announced. And how about one more NA candidate before we shift on over to the APAC region? Another person that has a great chance of being an MVP finalist is Violet. After him and the Shock had that off week against both LA teams, Violet seemingly transformed. After getting ridiculed and made fun of for not showcasing elite level Ana play, he turned back the clock to what we saw from him during the Shock's 2019 campaign. I understand if you believe his lack of Ana takes away from his achievements, but he's been just fine on literally everything else. And try and remember that he's only been on that character for about 2 hours, which is a very small portion of his playtime. He has primarily played the Baptiste this year, and it has been scary. That man is a freak of nature on BAP. Somehow the Shock have lucked into having the best BAP in the league 2 seasons in a row. I don't know if Violet took lessons from Rascal or something, but he is without a doubt leading the pack on this hero currently. His carry potential on BAP is remarkable. Game after game after game, he just continues to put in the work, and he's proven he can do it in high pressure scenarios. Anybody else remember his performance against the Mayhem in the May Melee Finals? He played one of the greatest games on Baptiste we've ever seen. And don't be mistaken, he can still really put in the work on Zen. We haven't seen it a ton this year, but it looked pretty nasty a couple of weeks ago. It's still as good as it ever has been when it comes to damage and healing stats, as he's right up there with the best still. Violet is a one-of-a-kind player, and he's proving that for the second season in a row. There's a lot of superstars on that Shock team, but I can't help but feel like he is one of the leaders on that team thanks to extraordinary play at the flex support position. Now let's give the APAC boys some love, because there are some worthy selections over in that region as well. How about we start with quite the popular one? Someone who has a great chance of making it has to be Fleta. That Shanghai team has shown mastery of this game all year long, but Fleta has undoubtedly been one of their greatest and most consistent allies. I'd argue that this is the best season of his life. Take what he did in the first half of 2018, but for the whole season essentially. That's the version of Fleta we have bared witness to. Since joining Shanghai, he has been reborn. He's always been a very talented player, but he used to have those on and off moments during his tenure with Seoul. But since the Dragons acquired him during the offseason, those inconsistencies have been nowhere to be found. Fleta is a popular MVP selection among fans and professionals alike, and for good reason. With Fleta, it's less of a stats thing and more of a just go back and watch the film thing. The results are there, I promise you. Individually, he's been insane, but his skill also translates into his team play for sure. He has done whatever his team has needed this year and has done so with excellence. How many times have we seen him get clutch picks when the game is on the line? It has practically become second nature for him at this point. And how about the flexibility? He has demonstrated top tier play on so many different heroes. Genji and Pharah have always been his thing, so it doesn't come as a surprise to see him putting in work on those heroes. But what is a little surprising to me is how solid his Tracer and Mei have been. He was never really known for his Tracer before this year, and his Mei in 2019, well, was kind of atrocious. But yet again, it's a new team, a new year, and a new Fleta. And that's not even where it ends for this guy. He's picked up things like Reaper, Torb, Echo, you name it. It doesn't really matter what he touches. He's looked so darn good. He's been one of the definitive leaders on the Shanghai Dragons, and there's no way they get to where they are currently without his help. You gotta go beyond the stats to truly appreciate Fleta. And I mean, if you really need stats to have him be validated, look back to the totals I used with Carpe, because guess what? Fleta's right at the top too. Is it a stretch to consider Fleta the best flex DPS in the game right now? No. Not at all. Hence why he deserves a shot at the MVP award. While I'm on the topic of the Shanghai Dragons, let me get my fifth potential prediction out of the way. I would not be surprised in the slightest if Void ends up making the MVP voting. Like myself, a lot of people at the Overwatch League love stats, and Void just so happens to be a stat sheet stuffer. He's probably one of the most underappreciated superstars. He's quietly been a dominant force all year. I'd argue he's been even more consistent than Fleta. There's a few interchanging pieces on that Shanghai team, but Void remains a constant. No matter who he's paired up with at the main tank position, the results are there. He plays exactly how you'd want your off-tank to play. There's so little he does wrong. He might not be number one at every off-tank hero in the game, but he is certainly close to the top on all of them. Void plays a very intelligent and yet aggressive playstyle. His understanding of how to play this game is extraordinary. It is mind-boggling to me that someone can contribute so much and yet very rarely pay for it with his life. His combined per 10 minutes on Sigma, D.Va, and Zarya are practically incomparable. He might only be like top 6 or better with all the damage stats, but he makes up for it with the lowest death rate in the league. Not even the likes of Choi, Fury, and Hanbin have that low of a death rate. And what's scary is that he's played longer than most of these guys I'm comparing him to. There's more situations in which he could die, but that still doesn't stop him. I'm pretty sure he only recently broke the 400 death mark. That is unbelievable. His achievements never cease to amaze me, and his abilities have allowed for the Shanghai Dragons to stay in the driver's seat for the top record in Season 3. Now for a guess that is a bit more of a shot in the dark. I think another potential person the league could end up selecting for the MVP voting is Mano. It's not super likely because the league doesn't always like to recognize what he does, plus New York haven't really played up to some people's expectations, so that might give people more incentive not to pick any NYXL players, but you know what? He's still a good candidate nonetheless. Plus, when you think about it, he got robbed of being in the top 5 last year, so that could make for a good redemption story. The Overwatch League loves these types of storylines, so I could totally see it happening. Again though, I kind of see Mano as one of the people on the outside looking in. A lot of things would have to go right for him to make it. If the NYXL could maybe string together a solid win streak or maybe a tournament win, maybe it could happen. because all I know is that Mano definitely deserves it, as he's probably been the most consistent piece on the NYXL this year. He's had a few ups and downs for sure while trying to transition into a new team style, but most of his stuff was pretty minor and it doesn't happen often. Through thick and thin, he has carried the NYXL, and he does it without getting as many resources as other dominant main tanks in the Overwatch League. It amazes me that he can pull off such a carry role given those circumstances. He's made some big plays on the Winston, some massive shatters on the Rhine, and even his Orisa hasn't been too bad this year. It definitely has improved. It's been a well-balanced season for a well-balanced main tank player. Mano always does what is needed out of him. That's what makes him stand out so much to me. His adaptability is of elite status. The team tells him to play differently than he did in previous years, and he does it. That's it. He doesn't complain. The team needs him to play better on the Orisa or pick up the Wrecking Ball, and again, he just does it. Mano is a constant that always has the back of the NYXL, and there are times where he straight up saves them from certain doom. We've seen it time and time again this year. One of my favorite examples was that game against Chengdu in the May Melee. He is always the guy to step up when the situation is dire for some reason. That type of leadership quality has MVP status written all over it. Being dominant isn't the only way a player can be of high value. It's important to remember that. Now then, my next guest could trigger some people. Another person I could totally see on the ballot is Sparkle. Remember guys, this isn't who I personally want to see, it's more that this is who I just think the league could potentially put in the polls. Listen guys, at the end of the day, Sparkle is one of the most hyped up players in the league. He's been receiving this treatment before he even became eligible to play on stage this year, and because he has lived up to the hype, people are going to continue giving him the highest of praise. Even though he's only really been there for his team since the beginning of June, people are going to look past that. He's only really played Genji, but his hero pool is not important in this scenario. People see him popping off like crazy and becoming a huge difference maker for Paris, so that's all that matters. No matter what counter argument you may have as to why he doesn't deserve to be in the running, that's something we all have to admit to. Since Genji became meta, he has undeniably been a superstar that pushes his team to the very top. Only like a month after becoming league eligible, his team is suddenly beating the top teams in NA while also winning the Summer Showdown. And I mean, you can say what you will about him playing a lot of Genji and not a lot of anything else, but he has no doubt been the leader at Genji, who is a hero that has been pivotal in this meta for about a month or so. As a rookie who came in mid-season, he has helped turn this team into a menace. That isn't something you see all that often with rookies. We've seen other prominent rookies come into the league mid-season on a team full of veterans, but not many of them have made this much of a difference. It's been a solid season for a player that many people had high expectations for. People like it when good players live up to the hype, so Sparkle seems like someone the league is considering here to me. For my next prediction, I've got Krong. I feel like at least one Guangzhou player had to make the cut considering how great of a season that team has been having, and the player who seems to be getting talked about the most on that team is Krong. And you know, I would have to agree with anybody who thinks he's worthy of being an MVP. Saying he's been just as good as Void, Choi, Hanbin, or Fury is not crazy at all. In fact, I would agree. Krong has this defensive style to him that really seems to benefit his team, and I've noticed it on every single hero he has played so far. His intelligence keeps him alive. You guys remember that death rate I showed with Void earlier, right? Well, when using the same credentials for Krong, he is practically identical as he is tied for second lowest death rate in the league. His kill contribution stats may be lower, but that's okay. The Charge don't need him to go that crazy. What they need from him though is to play more with his team and take cautionary off angles. But don't be misled. Krong will carry when he needs to. If Happy or Eileen can't really get it done for whatever reason, then Krong is almost always there to save the day. Even when the Charge weren't playing all that well earlier this year, Krong was still kind of nasty. Could Rookie of the Year probably be a bit more reasonable for him to be in the voting process for? Yeah, I think so. But ever since the Charge won the Summer Showdown, people at the league have been giving mad hype and respect to this guy. And that signals to me that he might be able to make a late season push for the MVP conversation. Now that people are giving the Charge more attention, his odds of being in contention for more awards have certainly skyrocketed. So why not have him be in the MVP running? I don't have a problem with it. While I'm on the topic of off tanks, how about one more for you? If there was one other tank player who I could see the league putting in the ballot, it would have to be ChoiHyoBin. We've seen multiple shock players make the voting once before, so I don't see why it couldn't happen again. Sure, you could argue other off tanks have been better or have been just having a bigger impact on their team this year, but you could definitely still sneak Choi into the top 5 along with somebody else. Listen folks, the fact of the matter remains is that Choi is still a god. Is he this untouchable being? No, of course not, but the results don't lie. He is close to the top on all off-tank heroes, and does he have one of the lower death rates? You better believe it. And do I really even need to go into detail over his clutch factor? If you think Hanbin and Krong are clutch, then you gotta put Choi right there with them. If you look at the same clutch final blow stat I used with Carpe, you'll quickly discover that Choi is smack dab in the middle between those two players. They are practically equal when it comes to this particular statistic, which is a common theme you'll find with a lot of other places as well. ChoiHyoBin is still one of the best, and again, with the Shock being one of the best teams with one of the craziest rosters, I could totally see the league fitting in multiple Shock players since so many of those guys deserve that level of praise. Now, for a final potential MVP prediction, I've got Alarm. I think we can all agree that Alarm has been a top tier flex support this year, and in my opinion, you could definitely make the argument he has been the best. Looking beyond stats, he is incredibly smart. Alarm doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and when you don't make those silly positioning mistakes or overcommitments, it leads to more teamfight wins. The way he plays Zen, and Ana for that matter in particular, is as close to flawless as you could possibly get. Alarm has literally done so much for the Philly Fusion. He enables his teammates so well. This especially goes for someone like Sato, who has shown a lot of trust in his young teammate. What he has done for this team is incredible, given how much better he has made the team around him, in my opinion. But think about what he does individually as well. He's a phenomenal support player. He is at, or close to the top in heals per 10 on both Ana and Bap. And don't give me the excuse that he's like just some heal bot or something and that it doesn't matter, because you'd be straight up lying to yourself at that point. He's a major contributor when it comes to fragging. For damage, he is top 4 on Zen, and he's number 1 on Baptiste. The big damage, the clutch sleeps, the big ults, he does everything with precision and excellence. Like with Krong, you have to consider Alarm for both Rookie of the Year and MVP. He is deserving of it, in my opinion. I think that people who decide who makes it recognize this as well. So yeah, those are some of the people I see the league picking. There could be other people I'm missing, but that's just a small list for you who I think could end up making the final cut according to who the league select. But now, let's briefly go over a list of people who I on my own believe to be worthy of making the MVP race. So to start, let me just say that a large handful of the people I think the league will pick are also ones that I believe in my own humble opinion will make it as well. Carpe, Void, Hanbin, Fleta, Violet, Choi, Krong, and Mano are all people I really want to see make it. But here's some other names who I think could be deserving. I would love to see somebody like KSP, because he's been a superstar on a Valiant team who are not expected to be in the top half of the standings. Plus, he's currently having a season for the ages on the hitscan role. Another guy who I think is deserving has to be Smurf. People don't talk about this guy nearly enough. He absolutely is the best Orisa in the league, and you can honestly argue the same for his Winston. He's right up there with Fearless in my opinion. Smurf has played out of his mind this year. I would also maybe like to see at least one Florida player maybe make the cut. Whether it would be Yaki, BQB, or Gargoyle even, I think at least one of them can have an argument be made for them. They've all been really great this year compared to other players who play the same role as them. How about another example? How about Fielder? This 200 ping warrior has been a top 5 flex support in the league. Being that insane with that kind of disadvantage is worthy of the highest praise in my opinion. The fact that he can still be that reliable is mind-boggling to me. And lastly, I would love to see another charge player maybe make the cut. If it's not Krong, it would be cool to maybe see Eileen for his insane flexibility while also being the only non-Korean in the starting lineup for the charge. Or how about Happy for his elite hits game prowess? I kind of hope that Shu gets some sort of recognition as well. Nobody ever talks about Shu. He is the definition of underappreciated. He's been a top flex support in the league all year with the numbers he's been putting up, but nobody ever talks about him. Besides that though, I think that pretty much covers my MVP wish list. If I don't see at least 2 or 3 of the people from this wish list make it on here, I would be kind of sad. Fingers crossed. Well guys, there you go. Those are some of the players who I think could be a part of the MVP race, as well as some of the players who I personally want to see get voted in. Who do you think makes the cut, and who do you personally want to see on the list? Tell me down in the comment section. If you guys enjoyed my content, then it would mean a lot to me if you could give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. And as always, thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate your support, and until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.